The old age home smelled of disinfectant and silence, the kind of silence that presses on your chest instead of comforting you. In a dim corner room, on the last bed by the window, lived Farid a man whose body had weakened long before his spirit. His hands trembled now, and his beard had turned the color of winter ash, but his eyes still carried a depth that many avoided, confronting the weighty shine of a man who had once given everything and received nothing in return. The staff members liked him. He never complained, never raised his voice, never demanded anything more than a little hot chai in the evening. But everyone could see the loneliness that clung to him like a second skin, especially when the clock struck 7, the time when most families came to visit their elders. The corridor filled with footsteps, laughter, greetings, gifts, hugs, and apologies for coming late. All except Farid's room. His door remained still, his visitor's chair remained empty, his heart remained waiting. Every night, while others left with smiles and hope, Farid watched the shadows of families walking out hand in hand. Sometimes he smiled a small, sad smile, not out of jealousy, but out of an unshakable belief that one day his children might walk through that door too. As he sat by the window, he often whispered stories to himself, not because he forgot them, but because repeating them helped him feel less alone. He spoke of the decades he spent working in the scorching sun, the nights he stayed awake stitching clothes, the early mornings when he'd rush to the factory so his children could live a life he never had. He had built dreams for them brick by brick, breath by breath, but now those very children lived far away, not just in distance but in heart. They never called, they never asked. They never remembered the father who fed them by starving himself, who worked 3 jobs so they wouldn't feel the hunger he once knew intimately. Still, Farid kept faith alive in a fragile, trembling corner of his heart. Maybe tomorrow, he would tell himself, maybe they'll remember tomorrow. But tomorrow had not come for many years, and on nights when the pain became unbearable, he would close his eyes, whisper a prayer, and tell himself he had done his duty. He raised them well, he taught them kindness. Life simply had its ways he did not understand, but tried his best to accept. Yet deep inside, an old wound bled slowly. He wondered if children forgot easily. Or if he was simply too easy to forget. But Farid didn't know that a single unexpected visitor was about to step into his life, someone who would change everything. Farid's memories were sometimes his closest friends, sometimes his cruelest enemies. As he lay on his bed staring at the ceiling, the ticking fan above began to melt into the sound of an old workshop machine. His mind drifted back to the days when he was still strong, still ambitious, still willing to tear himself apart if it meant building a better future for his children. He remembered waking up at 4 every morning when the world was still swallowed in darkness. He would quietly leave the house while his children slept peacefully, unaware that their father had already begun a long day of struggle for them. He used to walk miles because bus fare was a luxury he chose to sacrifice. Every saved rupee meant a better school, a new book, a pair of shoes that fit. He worked in the textile factory first, a place that smelled of dust and grease. The machines were loud enough to drown out his thoughts, but never loud enough to silence his hopes. He stitched shirt after shirt, hour after hour, until his back screamed and his fingers stiffened. But whenever he felt the weight of exhaustion, he pictured his children in clean uniforms, laughing with friends, having the childhood he never had. After the factory shift ended, he rushed to the construction site. The heat there was merciless, the work brutal. Sweat poured from him like rainfall, dust clung to his skin like a second layer, yet he worked without pause. The pay was small, but to him, every brick he lifted was a step toward his children's dreams. Then came the night shift, tailoring. His small sewing machine sat in a corner of their rented room. Farid spent hours bending over it, eyes burning, shoulders aching, stitching clothes for others while his own shirts remained torn and patched. He didn't mind, he told his wife, a father is like a staircase. People step on him so they can rise, and that's how it should be. He never told his children about the pain. He only showed them the results: school fees paid on time, warm food on the table, and small surprises wrapped in newspaper during festivals. His heart swelled every time they smiled, but their smiles faded as they grew older. They began to see him not as a hero, but as a burden. The world taught them speed, success, self-preservation concepts that left no space for a father who had given up everything to lift them higher. And so, little by little, they drifted away. Farid never blamed them, he blamed fate. Perhaps he blamed himself more for loving too much, giving too much, and expecting nothing in return. Little did he know. Someone else carried a piece of his past in their heart. Someone who hadn't forgotten him at all. Asterisk, and that someone was about to reopen a door Farid thought was permanently closed. Asterisk, the morning light entered Farid's room cautiously, illuminating the thin strands of hair that clung to his forehead. He sat up slowly, adjusting his glasses. Another ordinary day, he thought, another day of waiting. The home's front door creaked open loud enough to echo through the hallway. Footsteps followed, not rushed, not hesitant, but strangely familiar. The receptionist looked up and froze for a moment, recognizing the man standing at the entrance. He wasn't old, but he wasn't young either, a man in his late 30s with sharp eyes softened by guilt. He held a small notebook in his hand, worn out at the edges as if carried for years. He approached the front desk. "I'm here to meet someone," he said quietly. "His name is Farid. I don't know if he still lives here." The receptionist blinked. "Yes, room 14. The man nodded, exhaling shakily. Every step he took toward that room felt like walking through years of dusted memories. His heartbeat was loud, almost painful. He hesitated outside the door, hand trembling as he reached for the handle. Inside, Farid heard the softest knock, so gentle it almost felt imaginary. He lifted his head. No one usually knocked. Staff entered freely. Visitors never came. The door opened. The visitor stepped in. Farid's breath caught in his chest as he looked at the stranger, or perhaps not a stranger at all. There was something familiar in the curve of the jaw, the way the man clenched his fists when nervous, the trembling in his eyes. "Uncle," the man whispered. Farid blinked. The word pierced him deeper than any knife. You know me?" Farid asked softly. The man swallowed hard. "I knew you when I was a child. You helped my mother when she had nothing. You carried me on your shoulders. You used to bring sweets for me during Eid, even when you barely had money for yourself." Farid's eyes widened in shock, memories rushing back like waves. "You're Sana's son," he whispered. The man nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "Yes, my name is Rayyan, and I've been looking for you for years." Rayyan stepped forward slowly, pulling out the old notebook. "She told me before she passed that if I ever became a man worth something, I should find you, because you were the only person who ever helped her without wanting anything in return." Farid's lips trembled. He remembered Sana, the widow he used to help, the woman who considered him a brother in a world that had abandoned her, and now her son was here. After decades of being forgotten by his own children, destiny had sent him someone else, someone who remembered. Asterisk, but Rayyan hadn't come just to visit, he had come with a truth that would shake Farid's entire world. Asterisk, Farid stared at the notebook Rayyan placed in his trembling hands. The notebook was small, wrapped in a faded cover with petals drawn by a child's hand. It was Sana's handwriting on the first page, unmistakable. The letters curved gently, like a mother's touch frozen in ink. "She left this for you," Rayyan whispered. "She said you had the right to know what happened, and why she regretted never telling you earlier." Farid opened the first page slowly. Each line felt like a whisper from the past. "Farid, you saved me when the world abandoned me. I owe every breath of my son's life to you. If you're reading this, I'm no longer alive." His hand shook violently. Rayyan placed a hand on his shoulder, steadying him. Farid turned the page. "Your kindness kept me alive, but I could never repay you. You treated my son as your own. You sacrificed for him like a father. I never told you this because I didn't want to burden you, but Rayyan deserves to know, and so do you." Farid felt a lump form in his throat. He kept reading, each word slicing deeper. The father Rayyan thinks he lost was never his real father. The room fell silent. Farid stared at the ink until it blurred. He tried to breathe, but air refused to enter his lungs. Rayyan looked down, unable to meet his eyes. I didn't know until a year ago," Rayyan finally said. "She told me the truth before she died." Farid's mouth trembled. "What truth?" Rayyan swallowed. "That, you were my father." Those words shattered the air like glass. The notebook slipped from Farid's hand and fell to the floor. He closed his eyes tightly, memories flashing the night Sana cried, the struggle she faced alone, the way he always stood beside her. The love he buried deep because life had already taken too much from him, and all these years, his real son had been searching for him. While the children he raised forgot him, the child he never knew existed had carried pieces of him in his heart.
Rayan knelt before him. "I didn't come here for answers," he whispered. "I came because I finally found the man who gave me life, and I'm not leaving you again, ever." Tears spilled down Farid's cheeks, tears he had held inside for decades. For the first time in years, he felt seen. For the first time in years, he felt like a father. But fate still had one more storm waiting, a storm that would test this newly rediscovered bond. The home was quieter than usual the next morning. Some of the elderly residents watched curiously as Rayan helped Farid sit comfortably, fed him breakfast, and sat beside him like a shadow refusing to leave. The staff whispered among themselves. After years of isolation, seeing someone care for Farid felt almost miraculous. But life rarely gives joy without testing it. Around noon, the front gate opened again. A family entered, a man in his late 40s and a woman dressed in expensive clothes, followed by two teenagers scrolling on their phones. Their expressions were sharp, annoyed, and unmistakably familiar to the staff. They were Farid's children, the ones who had forgotten him. Rayan stiffened when he saw them at the doorway. Farid froze, eyes widening with a mixture of pain and disbelief. His eldest son, Zubair, spoke without emotion. "Abu, we came because the manager called. Something about paperwork. No hug, no warmth, not even a smile." Farid opened his mouth, but the words got trapped behind the ache in his chest. Rayan watched silently, fists clenched. Zubair glanced at him. "Who's this?" Rayan stood tall. "I'm someone who values him, something you should have done years ago." The room fell silent. Zubair scoffed. "We don't need strangers interfering in family matters." Rayan shot back. "Family? You abandoned him." The tension rose like a storm ready to burst. Farid quickly raised his trembling hand. "Enough, please." His voice cracked, but it held more strength now than ever before. "I spent my life working for you," he whispered. "I never asked for anything, not love, not money, just a little time, but you never had even that." Zubair looked away, guilt flickering for a moment. Rayan stepped closer to the bed. "You don't get to come and go when it suits you. He is not alone anymore. I'm here." The daughter snapped. "Who even are you?" Before Rayan could speak, Farid answered for him, his voice soft but filled with unwavering truth. "He is my son." Everyone froze. The words hung in the air like thunder. Rayan turned to Farid, eyes wide, filled with emotion he couldn't contain. Farid continued, "Maybe life hid him from me, but Allah returned him when I needed him most." Zubair opened his mouth to argue, but Farid raised a hand again. "Leave if you want, but remember this: a father never dies. He only waits, and I have waited enough." The children stood speechless. Rayan held Farid's hand tightly, whispering, "You're not waiting anymore. You have me." For the first time in decades, Farid felt whole. He had lost so much, but fate had returned something far greater: a son who chose him. But destiny had one final chapter, a chapter where Farid would make a decision that would change all their lives forever.